So, hello everyone. Thank you and welcome to OreAni 2021 end of fall season. Yeah. It's the new year 2022. And with
Happy New
that,
Year.
yeah, Happy New Year's, everyone. We've all been here for a long time, and hopefully we can get more out of it for the coming years. Today with us, as always, we have our good friends. We have Albert.
Hello.
We have Sean.
Hey,
We have myself. Hello. We have Vinny,
Hello, thank you for having me.
the baseball head guy. We have Jessica.
There.
And we have someone new today. I'd like to introduce Neo Yama.
Hello.
He claims he's Australian, but you know. So it's cool to get someone from outside of the States. I believe all of us are in the States, right?
mm-hmm.
So I just know one thing about Australia is that you guys don't have everything we have when it comes to anime, so you have a hard time watching some stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully that
That is true.
changes for the better. And he's also part of the I Hate Funimation streaming platform. It's terrible. So we're just gonna go down the list today and see if you guys notice any titles that I missed. Let me know, or movies, because I think I didn't even put in Sword Art Online Progressive. That movie came out, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it
there-
was showing in theaters.
yeah, and I think there was also some other sad news that came out as well. Like, didn't one of the director or something like that writer die at the beginning of December for like Cowboy
Screenwriter
Bebop?
for yeah,
The screenwriter.
Yeah. Keiko Nobumoto, I think.
yes. hmm
And she had her. She also, I think, did the writing for Macross. What was it? Plus. That was,
I think that's where they all met, the three of them.
that
So,
was
the
also in
director-
theaters.
I caught it in the theater. It was a one-night event back in
Second
early
week of
December or late
December.
November. Yeah. So director Shinichiro Watanabe and musical score by Yoko Kanno, right? And then Nobumoto did the screenwriting. So that's their first collaboration, and then they did, I think, Wolf's Rain, and then obviously Cowboy Bebop later.
hmm
But she was very young, unfortunate.
I like to say it was because of the live action Cowboy Bebop that finally set her over. I heard that was terrible.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
everyone has an opinion about that. So I did watch all of it.
Maybe we can discuss it at the end of our show.
Yeah, I'm putting that on the list. I didn't watch no Cowboy Bebop on Netflix, but want to hear about it.
I kind of do too.
I like watched the first episode and then stopped.
Well, I powered through it, and the only reason I got through it was because I was watching Arcane at the same time. And yes, I know it's not anime since a French production company did it, but it's the only reason. I'd watch one episode of Cowboy Bebop, and then I'd watch one episode of Arcane and marvel at the art of Arcane. So it was my reward for suffering through Cowboy Bebop. Netflix version. Also, I did go back and watch a couple episodes of the original just to compare it to, and yeah, it's rough. The Netflix version is rough.
How many episodes did they get out of curiosity?
It was 10 episodes,
Hmm.
and no more forthcoming. So here you go.
All right. So with that title out of the way, we'll go into our anime of the fall season. Our first title we got is 86. Dun dun dun.
Am I the only one who watched the second season? Or no, it's not just me. It's
So
it's Neo-Yama.
I haven't watched what was the latest one that came out, cause I figured I'll just save it until the rest of everything comes out.
Mm.
But what do you guys have to say about 86? Is it
I think I picked it up after Heike Monogatari, which was like interesting, but also kind of dry and kind of boring sometimes. So at the end of that, it's just like I need to watch some like anime trash, some really entertaining anime trash, and 86 was that. Like I started all the way from the beginning and then watched it all the way up to whatever the current episode is. It kind of reminds me of like if Code Geass took itself too seriously or something. But even though I don't think it's a good story really, but it does tick enough of the boxes of just like being good genre entertainment. Like the characters are fleshed out well enough. The the pacing is good enough. Like things happen like when you expect them to happen. Even and then in the second even like in the second season you kind of it takes a drastic turn and they're in a new place and they introduce new characters and you know it all happens when you expect it to happen. It's like, oh right, this feels like the second season of this thing or the next arc. And they introduce a loli even when you think this show could use a loli character, and then they toss one in there. You know, maybe a little bit too much of that character, but I don't know. I wanted some anime trash, and like 86 gave it to me. It's very entertaining. Like I just popped one episode after the next.
and the soundtrack was wonderful too.
It's got a lot of insert songs. Like it has insert songs, you know, exactly when you think they should appear, and they sound exactly what you think they would sound like. You know, just these like over the top dramatic. It it's it's entertaining. That's what I'll say about 86. I think it would be a mistake to take the show like really really seriously because its ideas are pretty absurd.
The thing that we
Yeah,
found, I thought, sorry, that I found that was funny was that as we were watching, we were like, oh, he just said the Death Flag line right there. So we would just watch it like, oh, no, don't say it, don't say it. And then he says this word. I'm like, oh, okay. It's nice knowing you, character.
Yeah, it's kind of a young adult type story where the kids are, you know, fighting this hopeless battle and, you know, dying left and right, and the adults who don't respect them are making them do it. And there's some sort of like racism thing, and the racism is like you don't have the right anime hair color, so we're gonna send you to the battlefield to die and like not respect you as a human being. So it's that kind of like very familiar like young adult type setup, you know, that sort of pulls on all the same heartstrings that any like young adult piece would.
it definitely does follow like that sort of like chaotic theme that it needs to uphold. Like I just remember like there was just one week watching all the different types of anime for this season, and it's just all like, you know, tugging on your heartstrings, and then 86 comes and you just you're not ready for it. I found it, you know, an enjoyable anime for some of the other weird ones that have come out, but there was just some parts that are just like, oh yeah, okay, he's going in this craze moment where he's just gonna go kill everything. Cool.
Mhm.
honestly think that the first season was much stronger than the second one. Is that it could have ended at the first season and I would have been fine because I felt that the story arcs completed their emotional journeys and whatnot. But to sort of reset it in a way is what the second season's doing. And having everybody start from the same place that they were in the first season, I didn't really appreciate that. But I haven't finished the second season, so who knows. But the death flag thing really just. When that happened, I thought, are we doing this? Are we seriously? In 2021, the year of our Lord, we're doing this? Okay, whatever. I
Uh,
was hoping for some type of subversion of that trope, but no.
the one thing I was actually a lot surprised about was that they solely almost all focused on the group of 86s that went to the met the other federation or whatever they call themselves, and they didn't really focus anymore on the female from the last one. I can't remember her name because she wasn't even mentioned really until except for at the
Like,
first episode.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I dislike about 86 structurally is that they drop the stuff from the first season a little too hard. And now I wonder like if any of that is even gonna come back. Like it has to, right? It's one of my expectations, but
I hope so because I feel that she's the one character that didn't get her time to fully complete her arc, whereas everyone else did at the end of the first season because spoilers, they kind of sort of died. Um, but then the second season rewrote all of that, and I just didn't think it was effective.
yeah, the second season does feel like a second season where it's like, okay, now we have to come up with some new stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just like, okay, throw in a loli and throw in this like a break in the action type arc where they're living this normal Japanese life and going shopping and that kind of stuff and getting mundane jobs. And that by the time I was like, okay, let's put them back in the damn robots, and then they do that, So it does do the things when you expect the show to do it. Yeah, Vinny in the chat says sounds like Ender's Game. Like as someone who grew up on Ender's Game, like I can connect to it on that Ender's Game wavelength. But yeah, like Ender's Game it wasn't meant to be a young adult story, but it is young adult-y, and a lot of things take from it.
But I would say I found it a little interesting in a sense where how they were treated in whatever wherever they were before, and then when they came to this new area, how the change was so different, but to them it didn't feel like the treatment was any less harsher, that they were still being looked down upon or and all that. Like, you guys are just children, you should be in more. And always trying to make them kind of like they were still trying to control them rather than letting them do what they wanted to do. But I found it still overall really great, and I was so happy with the reintroduction of Fido. Fido's my hero in that show. So, more Fido. That's all I can say. But let's go ahead and
Yeah,
move. Oh, we
it's
have
cool
some.
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Never mind. We can move on to the next one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was going to move on to the next topic. Anyone else have anything else to say? Okay.
No.
Well, next up is going down the list. Heike Monogatari. It looks like we got 2 people who've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
What's this green box? Is that
I plan to watch it, but I haven't
oh,
actually.
okay. So Hike Monogatari, I didn't even give it a 3 episode. I haven't even watched one episode. Is it worth it, Jessica and Sean?
I think so. For me, it was probably anime of the season. But your mileage is going to vary depending on if you're interested in the subject matter.
I kind of don't think it was worth it, so we're gonna have a fun difference of opinion.
Basically, it follows a Biwa player named Biwa as she gets connected to the Heike clan or the Tyra clan. And it just kind of goes through the Heike story, the beats of the beats of the Heike story, which I have not read, um, from her perspective as she sings about their downfall and whatnot. So it's definitely a slower pace. It's not an action heavy series, but if you like traditional music, I think you should give it a try. And if you like history too, because it's historical fiction basically.
From the outside, this anime is brow raising, I guess, because of the staff. 'Cause it has Naoko Yamada, who was Kyoto Animation star director, like coming over to Science Saru, which is Yuasa's studio, to make a show to adapt a story about the Heian period, which is an interesting period of Japanese history because that's like where Buddhism took root in like the noble class of Japan. And then there was this like flourishing of like art and culture, and it was like it's considered to be like where Japanese culture like really started to happen for the first time. And so adaptations of the Heian period are both kind of rare and automatically interesting, at least to me, because you see a lot of themes in Heike Monogatari that you see in other things. Like I was thinking of like Casshern Sins or something. Like it's almost this where it's this Buddhist parable, where like all these bad things are happening and people are facing, the end and death, and they have to have some sort of like come to some sort of like Buddhist peace with it or something. uh, I wanted to like this show, but I felt like, I hate to make structural arguments, but I can't help but make it with this one because that's the main thing for me is that this show should have been twice as long. They really they try to do so much in this show and it's only like 11 episodes or something. So there's a whole lot of like they're trying to depict the time period and they're trying to depict like the arts and the culture and they're but at the same time they have to depict all the like political maneuvering. There's this whole like Mobile Suit Gundam y kind of like politics story that's in it, but they rush through it so quickly that it's just like, here's a 40-second scene of some people talking about some political event. Here's another 40-second scene, and here's another 40-second scene. And like some of the episodes are just so full of that stuff that you're like, I'm having trouble keeping track of like what's happening where to who, which clan hates which clan and is moving against which faction by doing what thing. So they spend a lot of time, but also not enough time doing that stuff, and it all fights for space with everything else that the show is trying to do, with like illustrating these characters and illustrating the time period. And so I felt like there wasn't enough time to do anything justice. And by the time they started cashing the characters in for catharsis, the catharsis didn't feel earned. it's like, oh well, that character died. Like I didn't have much of an impression of that character, but it makes sense that they died, but I don't feel anything for their death because the show never made the case for like this is why you should really care about this character. It's like each character should have had an entire episode like dedicated to them or something.
It's really
So that
interesting because I felt the opposite. I thought that the show did a very good job of characterizing these historical figures because I've read about them in history books and stuff, and so I felt that they did a very good job attempting to humanize them and show that these were real people who really walked the earth, and this is what they were like, maybe. Um, so that's just kind of my opinion, though. I don't know. I guess you're gonna have to decide for yourself, Tank, whether or not you should give it a whirl. But I will say that it's pretty easy to tell if you're gonna like it. You don't have to do the 3 episode rule or anything. I would be pretty confident in saying that if you didn't like the first episode, you're not going to enjoy the other 10.
So from what I've heard, it's hard to tell if it's about music or not. From what Sean said and what you said.
no, it is a war epic.
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
about this clan goes to war.
oh,
That's
Sean,
the
okay.
story.
Sean is definitely correct in that it tries to do a lot with its runtime, and it doesn't always succeed. Is that the music is set dressing, I guess I would say. It's not about the music, but it is really interesting to listen to and hear. But yeah, it's definitely the story of this clan, the history of this clan, and beat for beat, the historical events that as we know them.
Uh-oh, my phone.
It,
Sorry.
It's
so
definitely interesting hearing both your takes on it because it is on my list of anime to watch, but I haven't watched it myself. So hearing both your like inputs on it makes me actually want to watch it even more.
it's not, even though I was disappointed with it, but it's definitely one of the more interesting things to come out recently. Just like the outline of it is neat and
Mm.
unusual, and it does try to depict that time period, and that time period is always inherently interesting, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
very often that's depicted in anime because usually anime is about Japanese history is like the Edo period, which was kind of like the peaceful period, or the Meiji period, which was the revolution into the modern age, or the Sengoku period, which was,
Mm-hmm.
all the states are at war. But the Heian period is like Japan is mostly peaceful. Like this anime depicts the end of the Heian period when the ruling clan goes to war with, and then, yeah, and then things
Mm.
change.
All I
But
know is
generally,
it's not another isekai.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think the best Heian anime should have a quality of like taking you to another world because that world is so like foreign. I don't like to use that word foreign, but it is just like it is the bedrock of Japanese society or Japanese culture, but also it's such a weird insular just the way those nobles lived, like super weird,
Mm-hmm.
and depicting the like Tank said like he didn't know if the show was about music. Like that's part of what that at least the depictions that I've seen of that period are like, where it's like these nobles are expected to be like educated and they can play music, they can write poetry, and they can do all these other things. And that's part of what it is to be a noble, is that you have these skills and all that. And that's why in the show they're like, okay, let's play our instruments, just cause.
Hmm.
And this is how we have a good time. Let's play our instruments and dance, but in this like high culture sort of way.
All right. So, from what I've gotten from this is we just got to try it out ourselves. It's really hard to come to an agreement if we should or shouldn't watch this.
and I would definitely be eager to hear your opinions on it too.
I may give it a try. I mean, last time you mentioned something like that. What was it? The white something with the shimisen.
Oh, yes.
Last time you
The
mentioned
Shadow
that, I ended up watching it all in one setting right after the stream. So,
So you're saying I have good taste? I got you fooled.
but we'll see how it goes. Let's, you know, Neo was talking about it. Oh, at least it's not an isekai. But next up is an isekai. Surprise, surprise. We got this show here. I guess um, it's an isekai, but I guess it's generally about food, right? Isekai Shokudo 2. So let's go ahead and see what this is. Is it still just as good, or is it just a rehash of everything from the first season?
It's
Practically is in its own way, but there is story to it. Like, I found it a very wholesome anime and quite enjoyable. Unlike other food animes like Food Wars, obviously that's a different aspect in its own. But every like I quite like this anime because it's not a simple character going to another world. It brings different sort of characters to this one spot. And that's where that whole isekai comes in. And each character brings their own story. So it is different from the first season, bringing new characters in, but it is the same. You're going to say something, Vinny, were you?
uh yeah, sure. I'll add a few things. Only flaw with this series is, well, it's not high action. It's more it plays more like a slice of life. So if you're expecting more actions, it's not for you. Just like season one. So if you watch a season one, you'll probably watch season two. If you didn't care for it on season one, you're not gonna watch season two because it's more or less a continuation with a little bit of in grand scheme of things, there is actually a plot line in the end that kind of reveals itself a little bit, but nothing too serious. Uh, the biggest fault I find with this series, and just like every other, pretty much any kind of isekai series, is that it puts too much emphasis or puts modern society or wherever that original character is from into high pedestal. Some of the food creations, it's really nothing but dessert that you can find in any old store, but because it's just so new and novel, they put it too much emphasis on it, which kind of I find it to be a little bothersome. But otherwise, characters are generally likable. Aletta kind of gets over her complex of being a demon by having that little horn, and Black Dragon kind of morphed into the form of a elf-looking waitress never managed to, destroy the place, which I was kind of hoping to see that happening, but she never did. But yeah, overall it's enjoyable. They switched the animation studio from uh, Silverlink, I believe was a season one. Then they changed to OL. Was that OLM? Um, and I was kind of worried about that. But other than how the kitchen looks kind of terrible compared to the first season, but character looks fine. So there's that, and
I
that's
didn't
pretty
even
much
notice that.
yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
season
like
one. Go ahead.
I didn't even know they changed studios, so I didn't notice a difference really. I guess
Yeah,
that's
it's.
probably my ignorance of watching too much anime as well.
I mean, I like the series actually most of them, pretty much any kind of isekai series. But then I'm kind of done with the sort of slow burning isekai. Taking itself not too seriously. So if you watch the first season again, you notice how sparkly and shiny those tables and kitchen area is. Then when you see the first episode of the second season, you'll notice that everything looks really rough on the kitchen. Everything looks like it's drawn on a chalk instead of like a sharp line. But once you kind of
Oh,
get
I
over
see.
that, then it's kind of fine. Character looks fine, so that's that.
I'll have to go back and have a look at that.
Hmm.
You know what I'm reminded of when I hear you guys talk about this, but I'm also wondering if it's similar to it, or if it's very different. But did anyone ever watch the anime called Bartender?
No.
No.
I did see that. I saw that back in its day.
Because it kind of makes me think of that. Like each episode, a person would come into the bar, talk with the barkeep about everything that's happening. Then he would make him a specialty drink for his mood or that moment, which would be the target of the whole episode. And it kind of made me think of this show a little bit in a sense where I'm wondering if they do the same thing. Is it like a new dish every single episode that they introduce, or
Mostly, yeah. They do revisit same dish on some of the episodes, but they kind of branches off from it, so they don't just serve the same one over and over. But the running joke of the series is that every patron who comes to that restaurant every Saturday, their nickname is the dish they favor the most. So they don't go by their real name, so everybody's favorite dish becomes their nickname. That's basically passes around, which kind of serves as a ways to hide their identity, since some of those patrons may not get along in real life for many reasons. Also serve as a folly to ensure that whatever happens in the real world, they kind of leave it behind. So it's kind of like a neutral zone. Everybody's in truth. You don't bring your internal affair to the eatery. You just come, eat, enjoy, and then you leave and look forward to the next 7 days or so.
Hmm. One thing I did find interesting about this anime though was like the character design. They all like every single character that was introduced with each episode had some sort of appeal to them that made them interesting, or you just want to know more.
so did they introduce a new character every single episode?
No, not always.
Hmm.
Some of the episode is kind of a expansion of the previously introduced characters. Like there's a one character who's an elf, prototypical Japanese style elf, where they don't eat meats, they only eat the greens, and la 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 la. So in season one, she accidentally stumbled into it when the portal opens up in her forest, and realized that this is an eatery that's uh, frequented by a bunch of savages who eat meat. So she was thoroughly disgusted by it and demand the chef to serve her something that's devoid of meat. And I let her kind of ask, "Can you serve the food that's not food?" And he was able to manage to serve something that's completely vegetarian, free of milk, free of dairies, free of meats, eggs, etc., etc. In second season, while she's traveling, she befriends another half elf, and she ends up finding another door that leads to the restaurant, and she ended up having different meals, and that serves her needs. So there's some episode like that brings a recurrent characters from the season one. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are new, some of them are recurrent, and some of them even actually has a storyline that develops further from it, like two loyal members from each country that kind of has crushes on each other, but they don't know how to talk to it, and that kind of becomes a secret meeting place of sorts that develops into the storyline down the road.
Is Albert there, or did he have to do something? Or
No, I'm here.
do you have something to say about the show?
No, I mean, if you like season one, you'll like season two. There's some continuing storylines that, like Vinny hinted at, and um, yeah, I did notice like the decor, the background art is a step below. Um, And OLM is kind of an interesting studio that they have different teams led by different directors. So even though OLM also did Komi Can't Communicate this season, it's a different team. And they've actually, from what I've read, spun off a couple of divisions. They're also doing some live action stuff. So becoming more of a production company, not just an anime company. But anyway, yeah, Restaurant to Another World, Isekai Shokudo. It's a perfectly enjoyable, laid-back slice of life show. So if you like season one, you'll like season two, and they did put effort into the cabbage scene. And I think this last episode, there's a cabbage scene. Everyone knows about cabbage in anime, so it was well animated.
Thank you, Albert. Let's go ahead and move on to the next title. This should be relatively quick. Kaginado. And it looks like no one else has watched this or even attempted it. It's kind of sad. So, Kaginado is, of course, a very short, I believe 4 minutes or maybe 5 minutes. I can't remember the exact time. But it was amazing. I loved every moment of it. It's basically they chibified and made a universe where basically it was a key universe. So of course Kagi, which is key right there, right, is in the name, and that's part of the whole appeal to this is all these characters interacting and of course playing to their characteristics within this world, and it's just a hoot. And I've seen almost every single key works out there, maybe not to completion because I can't say I've ever completed Clanad. It's just too sad for me to finish. But it was great. And but we did notice that a lot of titles were missing, and I kind of came to the conclusion that after we did a little bit of research that all the titles that are the characters in the show aren't from original works. They're all from characters from light novels that had become an anime. So you got Air, Clanad, Little Busters, Canon, Rewrite, Planetarium, and so a lot of the other shows that we also know from Key weren't in there. So that's kind of why I based my assumption on. But then, of course, it kind of almost threw that whole thought process away with the last episode. But you'll have to watch to see how that goes. But they're really short and really fun, so it's really easy to get into and just watch. And there's even a roundtable event where all the protagonists are sitting in a room with paper bags over their heads, just talking about how each of their arcs went. And it was just, oh my god, it was just so funny just listening to these protagonists talk about how all their problems with their girls and their world and everything, and how lucky they were. And it was amazing. So if you've seen a lot of the key titles, I would say definitely give it a try. Even if you've seen maybe like just a few, you'll still get some enjoyment out of it. But if you haven't seen any, you'll miss out on a lot of the jokes. So you definitely have to have seen or have some exposure to the key titles to understand quite a bit of the remarks that they're making. But overall, highly recommend for a short comedy that won't take too much of your time. And um, I guess that's it for that. What do we have next? Kaizoku Ojo? When did that come out? Like,
Last season.
so.
It was kind of last season. It was one of those weird ones that started midway through spring, I think, or fall. I don't remember now.
Let
But
me,
we didn't talk about it last time.
let me go to spring then, because I'm looking for the title card and I can't find it.
I think
So.
it might have been late fall. It wasn't over when we had our last hangout. It needed one episode to go or something. I don't remember. The last 2 years may as well have been 10 years.
I think the
Hmm.
last time we talked about it, like nobody has seen past episode 1, so the only thing we could say was like episode 1 was cute and it had good art.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much, after watching the whole thing, what I would say is that it's a really fun adventure anime. It reminds me of a lot of adventure anime made in the 90s, where it's just, we're gonna have fun. Here are all these quirky characters, lots of comedy and humor, and the fate of the world. And it did a good job. I would say that it's pretty competent, and you'll have a good time. But it's not earth shattering. It won't leave you with a huge lasting impression, except, oh yeah, that was fun.
I saw about, I think, 3 to 4 episodes before I dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching the promotional like trailer or whatnot and going, wow, this looks amazing. Like it looks like it'd be something that you don't see in anime a lot. And I watched the first episode and it looked really interesting. But as I gradually went through each episode, I got to about the third or fourth and just lost interest. Like it was all this like about how what's the best way to put it? Like she's got this item, doesn't know what it is about, and has to find out what it is. That's what I got from it, and being that there was a lot of other different types of animes going around at the same time, I just lost interest and watched something else.
That's pretty fair. Yeah. Um, it's not going to. I guess that the hype around it was probably a bit too much for what we ultimately got. Is it's just maybe an average B, I'd say.
Hmm. Like, I wouldn't mind going back and watching the rest of it, but at the time when it was coming out weekly, it just didn't interest me enough to continue
Mm-hmm.
watching it. But I feel like it would be good if that was the only thing I was watching. If I was only watching that anime, I probably would have gone through all of it.
So I'll admit I started to try to pick it up and watch it because of. I mean, it looked pretty enough and it was interesting, and I didn't really know if I wanted to get into anything else this season. And I have to say, the first few episodes looked really, really nice. Really great character designs and very nice movements. And I gotta say, I also got hooked with that opening song when it just starts. Oh yeah, and I'm just like, ah, that's so cool. I just loved it. It was just so much fun whenever I heard that come on. But
The amount of times you played that, like in our like calls or whatever, it's just like, oh yeah, just listen to this like first few seconds and that's it. Don't play the rest of it, just that first few seconds.
oh man, it thrilled me. I don't know why. It was just so cool to me. Just how they had that opening. But I'll admit I also lost interest in it because of other titles that were out and that I kind of wanted to watch more. So It's one of those titles that I feel that I'll watch if there's nothing else going to be on, and because even with the first few episodes and the direction they were showing that they were trying to go in, I just don't feel that there's going to be anything to drive me to want to care about what they're doing. Admit it looks like they'll have some really cool combat and some really interesting things going on, but just I don't know. I think if the whatever that the main guy, I guess that she's known since childhood, was more active or different, I think I would probably be more interested. But he always seems to be now like this background character from the beginning.
Oh, I know what the problem is that there's not a pirate princess. There's pirates and a princess, but not a pirate princess.
Yeah, so we can't.
That's why it fell flat.
Yeah, it needs to be like the what is it? Bodacious space pirates.
Well, you know what? That title is more honest. There are space pirates and they're bodacious.
But yeah, so sad for that show. But you saw to the end. Was it okay ending or?
Yeah, it was pretty okay. It's like the okayest anime ever. I think the reason why I enjoyed it more than the average bear is probably because it was so nostalgic for me, with it feeling like the adventure anime that I watched when I was in early college. And that's why I think I got more miles out of it than most everybody else. But I would definitely say it's fair that, it's not going to wow you. All of the criticism is definitely valid, for sure.
Does it continue to uh, remind us of Disney past the first episodes? I remember that was the one of the impressions that we had. That
So
this
one
kind of reminds me of like a like 90s golden age Disney thing.
So one
I
of the
guess.
things that disappointed me the most is that those two old characters that were very Disney-like, they're dropped by the second episode
Hmm.
because Faina goes off on her adventure and they stay behind because they're quote unquote too old. And I thought that
Oh,
was
that's right.
a real disservice because those guys were great. And the character designs are so charismatic and have tons of personality where there's a whole group of female pirates and you can just they ooze charisma that just by the character designs alone.
Like,
But yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I definitely like getting onto that third, fourth episode. I definitely did miss those two characters, but I felt like they tried to replace them with the twins.
Yeah, you're
That's what I
right.
felt.
It I think it would have been a lot better and more unique if they'd kept the old duffers around instead of the twins.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. We're gonna skip what do you call this? Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Oh yes, thank God.
I have
I didn't feel like talking about it, honestly.
I don't know what that show's about, so we're gonna skip
It,
that.
never heard of it.
You're not missing out on much.
Because I don't even think it's ending, right? Or ended.
It's just a
It's our
mainstream anime. That's all it is.
So we're gonna skip to this next one, which everyone seemed to be falling in love with, right? Because everyone loves Komi-san, right? There's nothing bad to say about Komi-san.
Oh yes, there.
And if you do, then you'll get disappeared by some unnatural force.
I'm gonna mute myself right now then.
But I like to hear everyone's opinion on this. Let's see who watched it. We got Albert, Vinny. Actually, I kind of want to hear Albert's take on this. Albert, do you think you can share with us what you have on to say about this?
So I watched the whole thing. I think episode 12 of the subbed isn't out yet, but I can watch things raw. So methods, um, sailing this high seas, whatever. Anyway, I watched the whole thing, and I mean it's an enjoyable show for me. I can see certainly how it is very cringy at times, as you know this relationship develops between Komi, who has a disorder and she can't really communicate well with people, and Tadano, wait, what's his given name? Can't
Tadano,
remember.
Hito Hito.
Tohito, yeah. So, Tadano means plane. That's what it means in Japanese. So all these names are just puns, right? And Tadano the is the everyman, the plain, Jane, so to speak, or plain John, I guess. And he figures out Komi's problem and decides to help her try to achieve her high school goal, which is to make 100 friends. And unfortunately, he doesn't quite realize at the time that his class is made up of a bunch of weirdos. Much of the school is also a bunch of weirdos, and all their names are puns on their behavior or characteristics. Right. So the stalker girl Yamai means to be ill or sick. So yeah, she's definitely lovesick. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of cringeworthy moments. The first episode is stunningly beautiful, but it turns out behind the scenes, the production team struggled really hard. They outsourced the majority of the episodes, and they only did like a third, if that, of the show. So, despite that, I think they did a pretty decent job. All the other animation studios, put in their effort. I didn't notice anything terribly off model where they're melting or their sakuga is going out the window. Nothing like that. Um, Voice acting, everyone is very unique, so you get to ham it up. So it doesn't really matter, right? There's no delicate moment. They're all over the top acting. So again, music, not really memorable. Background art, again, it varies from episode to episode. Some episodes are better than others. And at the end, if you know of someone who does have some sort of communication disorder, and this might not be the anime for you because it's just not really addressing her problems. It's not really trying to um, it's just trying to make her achieve her goals, and maybe there's some changes there, but it doesn't really come across well, especially to a Western audience. And I guess even the manga is beloved, and maybe it is a lot of the problematic elements that would show up in the anime is easier to gloss over in manga format. I guess audiences tend to be divided, at least in Japan. That's what I read, that it's not as popular as it is in the West. So there is something to keep in mind. And I've known a couple of people who have said, they watched the first three episodes and couldn't take it anymore. So I can understand their point of view, but I, for one, did watch it all the way through. At the end of the episode, a second season was announced, although that also was pretty interesting because they're aiming for, I think it was spring of 2022, but they didn't actually say scheduled for. So that is something I haven't seen before in anime announcement. So I found that interesting. But yeah, overall, enjoyed it for what it is. But is it the best anime of the season? No. Is it the worst? No, definitely not. Um, but it continues to highlight the problem in the animation uh, production sphere. So you can go read about it in a variety of places about their problems. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy it. It's just not a very strong recommendation for me.
Cool. No, like I can definitely agree with a lot of your points with that. Like before communicate the anime adaptation came out, I was reading the manga, and I got up to I think volume 12, which is way beyond what was shown in the anime. And yeah, I would definitely recommend just reading it instead of watching it because I was extremely hyped when I found out it was getting an anime adaptation. To then start watching it and then was really disappointed actually. Like there was the first episode I thought was amazing. That whole scene with them riding on the chalkboard, even Tank was amazed with it. It was like it looked really good. And then like seeing scenes from the manga put in like animated just didn't seem right. Like what always threw me off because I always complain about it every time I watch an episode was it didn't annoy me reading the manga, but like watching the anime, Komi's eyes just kept annoying me. Not having that reflection in her eye. Like to me, that's logic someone is either dead, hypnotized, or something. Lifeless. So yeah, I agree. Like it wasn't great anime, but it was better than nothing.
So I'll say the anime made me go and actually reread the whole manga. So
Really?
yeah, I'm not to current, but I did get over chapter 330, so I'm pretty close. Um, and oh my god, the manga is so good. The anime looks beautiful at moments and is really fun to see, but I'm looking that at from a kind of like a uh, fan sub point of view, and then I haven't seen it from the Netflix side. So I know there's a lot of complaints about how Netflix was subtitling it and how it wasn't working there. I don't know if they ever fixed it or if they're going to fix it. So I'm kind of curious on how if people who watched it on Netflix if it was thrown off because of how the subtitling was, or if there was something else that maybe threw them off as far as in the U.S. release. But it was kind of nice to get um, this anime kind of being released weekly or whenever it was released, rather than waiting for the whole, series to finish and then dumping it all on Netflix. So I hope they kind of continue that in the future, where with other series where we can kind of see more simulcast and on Netflix for anime. But I kind of hope they also put a little more effort into their subtitling. What about you, Vinny?
Ah, well, I mean, Albert pretty much covered all the bases. Yes, so episode 1 was gloriously done. It's very, very well done. I think I almost joked about it a few times that how OLM just managed to dump the entire annual budget into this single episode and kind of left everything else to try. Because I was watching that and then I was watching the Isekai Shogun and I was like, how could these two came from the same company when it looks so drastically different? But yeah, it's I didn't realize how many episodes were outsourced to another company. But then, in grand scheme of things, it kind of makes sense as soon as it hits episode 3, the quality kind of drops. Background kind of got a little boring. Um, I think every now and then they kind of hastily added those chronic aberrations to give that little film quality to it. But it was very uneven in that regards. But I think the biggest problem with this series is that how it was translated to the anime form. It throws way too many words into the background, and there's no amount of subtitle that can help you catch up on it. Um, and some of them are relevant, some of them are not, and it's not as bad as some of the monogatari series where they just throw too many things all at once to you. But those who haven't read the series and just jumping straight into anime, they're gonna look at this all this word being thrown at, and they're gonna get very frustrated by it quickly, not knowing what's that supposed to be, how the names of a bunch of puns that's not really explained or lost in translation. Whereas a manga, you can take a time to figure out what's going on, and they do a better job explaining to you. But in anime, everything is moving in real time, so it becomes it's very poorly done in that regard. And some of the stereotype characters are very cringy worthy. The one who's suffering from the Chunibyo one, and the one who's supposed to be like a dog character, that really disturbed me more so than Yamai. I mean, Yamai is pretty disturbing herself, but I found some of the characters to be just it's like why. But I stuck around and actually watched the whole thing. Have to rely on the fan sub for this episode 12, but got through it. And if there's a season 2, I'll probably watch it again since I like the series enough. But fundamentally, I guess the morality of the story is to find a really, really, really good classmate who can turn you into a friend. Otherwise, your problem's never gonna get fixed. That's it.
All right. Um, I will say one thing though. Um, one of my, one of my favorite jokes made it into this anime, which I think is a running gag in not just this show but in tons of anime with uh, Inoue Kikuko being forever 19 or something like that, forever 17. They made a joke of that in I think Zetsubou Sensei and some other stuff with her as a voice actress, and it's just I thought it was really hilarious how they got her in there to do that. Yeah, Bill Dandy's voice. um, but let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. I do have one quick question. Do we want to talk about the Kyokai Senki?
Oh,
No? Okay. And then how about Kyuketsuki no Sugu Shinu?
The only thing I've got on that one really is it's just another silly anime for like just to sit and have a laugh after watching something very drastic. So it's a mood changer. That's all it really is.
Okay. What else is there? I got lost now. Where am I? Lupin? Do we want to talk about that or?
yeah, I can briefly talk about that. So, if you've watched, previous Lupin the Third anime, this one is not that good in my opinion. So it starts off on a high note with Lupin and gang in London, and who better to be, Lupin's counterpart in England than Sherlock Holmes. So
Of course.
sets up this whole rivalry, and turns out half the episodes so far uh, do not involve Sherlock Holmes. It's just random other filler episodes. And on top of which, that whole arc kind of resolved at episode 12, but this show, part 6, is slated for 2 cours. So there's additional 12 episodes. So I have no idea where it's going. So I had a problem with the pacing. I had a problem with the story, um, jumping around. Um, Everyone is doing great. One of the things to note is the voice actor for Jigen, gunman has changed. So they had a episode 0 before the series aired, and um, that was by the previous actor who is what is it? I think it's Kobayashi. Wait, is that right? Let me check real quick. I don't wanna voice actor. Why isn't it? Why am I not showing correctly? Hold on a second. Anyway, his previous voice actor decided to retire. Here we go, voice actor. So yeah, it was voiced by Kiyoshi Kobayashi since 1969. So yes, he is currently, how old is he? He was born in 1933, currently age 88. So he decided to retire.
Oh my God.
And then the person that took over is Akio Otsuka, and you would recognize his voice because he's got that distinct kind of deep baritone drawl. What has he done recently? He's the grandfather in Eurocamp, yeah, and he's Ekubo and Mob Psycho.
I think he played a
The
character
ghost.
in Vinland Saga, but yeah, he's all over the place. Like I know him as like
Yeah,
Bato from Ghost in the Shell, right?
yes, that's him. So the episode 0 was Kobayashi's last role, and then with episode 1, Otsuka took over. So those are some interesting behind the scenes. You know, the voice actors have changed over the years. Yeah, he was the only original now, so everyone else has you know our second or third voice actors who have taken over the roles. Um, and it's also interesting that they bring in Sherlock Holmes because I guess Holmes stories are now in public domain, but originally when Maurice LeBlanc, who created the original Arsène Lupin Gentleman Thief stories, he had he mentioned a Sherlock Holmes in England, and I believe his estate, he got sued by the estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and so he changed the name to Herlock Sholmes. So it was Lupin versus Herlock Sholmes in several novellas, and that's the way he got around it. Of course, Japan has been in litigation. You know, when Monkey Punch created the Lupin the Third character, they've been in litigation with the Maurice LeBlanc estate for using Lupin's name without permission. So I just find it hilarious, right? Japan has their own "we don't care about you" attitude about certain things, which is really bizarre for for companies that do hold these copyrights. They're notorious for hammering on YouTubers and other copyright infringements in other parts of the world. But when it comes to in Japan, doujinshis and other fan created content, even though they're sold at Comic Market and other places, are allowed. So it's just the behind the scenes hilarity that I have watching Lupin shows and knowing all these characters that are now in public domain but probably weren't, and if it's like at some point MacGyver from America shows up, I wouldn't be surprised. So there you go. That's Lupin the Third Part 6, continuing on to next this winter season, and I have no idea where it's going.
All right.
That'd be an interesting take if MacGyver showed up.
They'd have to call him MacGruber.
Bust out a move here or there.
Here we go. Next up on our list, Meiruko-chan. Now, I have to admit, I kind of got interested in this show after you guys discussed it at the beginning of the season. And I've been trying to show it to a friend and watch it with a friend, but they end up falling asleep. So I just binge watched all of it like Thursday. And I like it.
Is it a comedy?
Let me see here. No, it's not a comedy at all. I think it was Jessica that was talking about it most at the beginning. And
Yeah, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm behind.
so what she mentioned was it's a horror type show, and she also mentioned it had a lot of fan service. So that got me really interested in it because I love horror, especially the paranormal. Um, I think Neo can contest to this that I always watch like Nuke's top five, where he does the videos of the top five ghost things on Twitter, Twitch, or whatever, going house hunting, and you won't believe what they found. They're always doing all that stuff on his channel. And I just love viewing that stuff. So watching this, I got this very like paranormal investigation type things that happen in those shows happen kind of in this series as well. Like the handprint on a mirror, or like you catch like a glance of a shadow somewhere in the corner of your eye. This was mostly in the first two episodes. I would say it happened a lot like that. And then as the series went on, it was more just apparent that there was things all over the place. And then what astounded me about it was not that she was seeing all these strange things and stuff, but more the fact that instead of targeting the Japanese ghost or yokai or anything like that, these were just strange apparitions that just were just either looked human but had some kind of weird distortion about them, or were just totally outrageous, but just it was just something disturbing about how they were formed. And that made it very interesting to see this in a ghost story rather than, the typical, like I said, yokai that you hear and see in the other Japanese ghost thing. So it followed more, like I said, that paranormal thing rather than ghost. And then I also found it kind of interesting how you couldn't tell if something was bad or good right away most of the time. And that made it somewhat interesting to me because it threw me for a loop. I'll say the twist, I was not expecting it. And so because of how they presented the show, it was really interesting and how that went on. But they definitely set it up for a whole nother season, and I don't know if they have anything marked that they're going to continue on. But I found it very fun, but it was kind of annoying that most of the time, anything that was said by any of these apparitions was, "Can you see me? Do you see me? Look at me," or something like that. Was most of the things that they always said. But and it wasn't a show that was all about fighting these paranormal or anything. It was just her trying to live her life, and most of the time she actually just tried to her best to ignore it and to not acknowledge these things that are happening or that she's seen. So it was kind of an interesting experience in this show for me, and I can't deny that there's a lot of fan service, and I don't know if it would dissuade anyone, but it wasn't like really, really bad, I would say, compared to some other shows I've seen. But It sometimes it's in the corner, and I'll admit sometimes it's just right there in your face. But I don't think it was bad enough that I would say that um, it should dissuade anyone. So I don't know. I remember Jessica mentioning that if it was like going to continue on or if it was going to lessen. That she had questioned, right?
Yeah, because there was some buzz online saying that the fan service in the manga lessens the further you get into it, and I wasn't sure if the anime was going to follow suit or not. Because I find it really hard to get scared when there's Shimapan right in front of my face, or a slow zoom shot of the chest. It's like, am I supposed to be scared right now, or what? So that part didn't really work for me. But the show is at its best when it's showing these ghosts in their elements in places that you think you are safe. And the one I remember the most is in her bed, where she wakes up and there's a ghost under the covers with her. That scared the absolute bejeebers out of me, and I had a hard time turning off the light that night before I went to bed. So, and that's pretty rare for anime to actually make me feel afraid. So that's why I wanted to continue watching it. And I will finish it eventually.
For me, I didn't find it like being that sort of genre. Um, I didn't find it scary or anything like that, but it was definitely interesting seeing the character development for the main character or even just other characters. Because just like Tank was saying, is she's trying to live her everyday life. She just wants to be normal. She doesn't want to see these sort of things. So trying to battle the fear of seeing these like ghosts or just abnormal things that you wouldn't see in your everyday life was definitely an interest in the fact of how she also deals with it too. So I quite enjoyed the anime. Like if they did a season 2, I would definitely watch it.
Mm-hmm. Now I will admit, like I don't know. I don't think I really got scared at anything that they showed, but I did appreciate how they showed how afraid she was. Like I could tell she was in fear, and that what was happening to her was generally putting a lot of pressure on her. And um, so I did appreciate that, and it was kind of interesting to see her, and it like I wouldn't say I was scared, but more kind of put into this like on edge on like what's going to happen to her. How is it going to break her? Is this the moment now that she can't put up with it anymore? Type of thing. And always kind of wondering like how far is she going to have to go to or endure all this. And they did leave a lot of mystery still out there. And cuz I because they kind of still really never to me I don't think they really explained why she started seeing them, and they haven't really. You said there was a lot of character development with her, but I don't really see it too much. Um, in a way where she's changed all that much because she's still going on with this fact that she just wants to ignore them and doesn't want to acknowledge them. But I'll admit she has kind of gotten a stronger heart at what's going on around her. But I don't know. I just don't think the development was big enough. But that could change in season 2 if they do make up, and it could change her character drastically. But like I think there's even a picture that made a comparison with how she was at the beginning and how she got scared, and then the exact same scene happened at the end of the season, and her kind of demeanor was different. But we'll have to see how it goes. But I really enjoyed the show. Uh, how much did you see, Albert, or did you just toss this away like you're not watching this anymore?
One episode.
Was it your thing?
No. Discussed that at the last session. One episode was more than enough.
All right. Let's go on to the next title then. Dun dun dun. What's this called? Mushoku Tensei? Another isekai? This is part 2, right? Instead of a season 2? A continuation? From
It's essentially the second core.
when was this released? In winter?
Right?
Oh, was
yeah,
it?
I think so.
Or
The first core was probably winter. I could look it up real quick. Mushoku Tensei.
oh, the first core, yeah. Well, it's hard to say because it got delayed a bunch of times too.
Anime television series. Yeah, it was January 2021. Was the first core, and then they split it. So this is technically part 2, not season 2. Actually, I'm not sure if they're actually going to name the next, whatever the next core part 3 or season 2 part 1. Who knows? But,
Trying to remember what happened at the end.
well, what do you mean in the story?
Or
You haven't been watching it?
in the anime. Yeah, I binge watched it. It was really hard trying to avoid spoilers. But I think I did really well at it, and then I binge watched it. I don't know. Although the show seemed interesting and fun, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was a show that I really wanted to watch every week.
Okay. Well, maybe it's just better with a binge watch because I mean the story. So they covered like his childhood and this what is this arc called? Anyway, the Demon Continent arc, right? So this is his adolescence, I guess. Um, yeah, it ends at that point. And if you have been reading the light novels or reading the manga, then you know that the next arc is the school arc. So Mushoku Tensei, started off as a web novel on the Naro Shousetsuka ni Naro website, which means let's become a novelist. So it got picked up as an actual series. He rewrote a bunch of things, edited it out, and started publishing officially. And there are, I'm sure how many novels at this point. I think there are 18, maybe more. And yeah, it's to adapt this. This is kind of like the father of modern isekai genre and made it really, really popular in all these light novels. And then they, decided to make an anime, but knew that they couldn't just have a studio that might or might not fail. So they created a studio around the project, right? So they created this studio Bind, and they have been animating it extremely well, in my opinion, with proper production cycle enough leeway to finish. I'm getting a lot of static from someone's mic, by the way. Um, so yeah, if you like the first season, you should still like the second season. It continues the arc as Rudius and Eris and also Rujard uh, travel across the demon continent and try to reach home to find out what has happened. And along the way, they meet, as you would, many other peoples. They have their own adventures, and they experience some near death also. And all of that culminates in a really, really well done final episode of the second part. So
Mm,
I
mm.
I have been enjoying it. Yes, I do read a lot of fantasy and science fiction. I play D&D and other RPGs, tabletop RPGs, I should specify. Um, and so this is completely in my wheelhouse, and it's a cut different from all the other uh, isekai that came after and tried to copy, and create a formula for success, and that's why so many of them um, find lacking. However, we all know that Rudius as a character is problematic, and if you don't want to see that, then you're not going to enjoy this show. Many people dropped it in the first part, right? When it first started airing, they're like, Rudius is such a lech, a jerk, all these things. The point is, if you don't like that type of character, you're not going to like this, despite the fact that he does change and grow through all of these um, petty uh, traumatic events that he suffered in his previous life. So um, I personally think it's a good show and it is beautifully animated, and you could tell that people care about this project. It's not without its issues and the way that the characters are written and their motivations and the overall story is ever expanding. And if you go through all the different arcs, it seems like the author just threw the kitchen sink of isekai at this. And so you have the isekai, you have the reverse isekai, you've got time travel, you've got teleportation, you've got demons, you've got uh, gifts from gods. You have near-death experiences. You've got Truckun, obviously, in that first episode, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's even more stuff I don't want to go through, but I did mention that there's a school academy arc coming up, right? That's another that's another thing that's been copied to death in modern isekai. So, but you need to go in. It is well done, I think. So it's a strong recommendation for me, and I think in many other people's view for these two cores for this year, it's in the top 10, if not in the top 5. It's adaptation wise, it's probably in my top 5. I have to really think about it because there were some really really outstanding properties that came out this year. Although there was a lot of horrible anime too.
Mm. I'd say
That's
for
what I've got to
me,
say.
yeah. I was just gonna say for me, I found it enjoyable watching it weekly instead of binge watching it. So I watched it every time it came out. Um, like I thought it was good in its own way. How I think he was like a 30-year-old man isekai as a child. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like it it definitely showed those like the problems he had to deal with from his past life and the problems that he's facing in the other world. Very interesting. Like, yes, he is a very easiest way to say it, perverted character, and has no boundaries and makes some really terrible decisions. But as I finished watching part 2, because of his decisions and everything that unfolded around that character, he ended up changing and maturing in his own way because yeah, just the whole the first part of finding out what happened to him in his previous life and then how he's dealing with it in his new life was just, it was quite interesting. And also him meeting other characters and just growing as a character, and to find out that there's going to be a school arc next is going to be interesting. I wonder how that's going to go, because I haven't read anything um on this anime. I haven't read the novels or whatnot, so I have no clue what to expect.
So I think that's part of the interesting story process as it's ever expanding, and I think you will enjoy the school arc, even though it tends to be more contained because it's a single location. It's not like traveling anymore, but you'll see what the author did and how all these newer, isekai anime copy that school arc. It will be an interesting thing for you to watch and compare it to some of the other isekai anime or even fantasy anime with a school arc.
Mm. I was told this anime is supposed to be a long-running story, so I'm curious on.
I checked and it's 25 light novel volumes, and I think we're somewhere in the six. They skipped a few things, but I think we're in the 6 or 7 light novel.
Mhm.
So I'd have to double check that, but yeah, there's plenty of story to go.
That's good, because I remember seeing someone post on the internet somewhere of illustration of Rudius on one of the novels with him grown up or something, and I'm like, oh cool, so we're expecting either a time skip or it's just gonna be so long that he just ages over time.
Yep. So you'll see.
Let's just hope it doesn't turn out to be like a One Piece and reach that 1,000 episode.
Yeah, probably not, but plenty of material to go. So it'll get adapted. It's still popular. It's ranked very high in the West and in Japan. So I don't see it not continuing, and just hope that they can keep up the quality.
The only thing I have to say about this show was that I have to admit I forgot how etchy this show was, and I kind of started wondering if the source material was just as etchy, and I didn't go to the light novels. I went to the manga, and it actually seemed like the manga was more toned down than what the anime has been showing. And but then again, like I said, if this is coming off of the light novel, then maybe it's not as bad, or maybe they're being truthful to what's going on. But I'm kind of curious if they've kind of upped the etchiness for the anime, or if they've actually toned it down from the light novel.
Oh, you should go read it and report back to us, Tank.
Ugh, that's too many books.
You know what?
What are you talking about?
He's
I
got to
will
get
ask
through his own collection first.
my husband's read every single book, and at the end of every jobless episode, he goes into great detail about what they took out, what they left in, all the different changes and stuff, and he gets so excited. He has spoiled a few things for me. Our divorce is pending, but
doesn't have a YouTube channel, does he? Because there's a bunch of people that do that, and that's having read only the manga, then I get the light novel difference. Right? It's a compare and contrast between the light novel, the manga, and the anime adaptation. So I'm finding it very interesting on what was skipped and what was not.
Really interesting to watch. Can you send me the link to one of those channels?
Okay, yeah, sure, I can do that.
All right, next up. What is this called? Osama ranking?
Yeah, this was a bit of a sleeper hit. I initially passed on it because I looked at the official artwork and I thought, oh, this is just a kids show.
Yep. Yeah. You see the title, you read the synopsis, you look at
And I'm
that
like,
key visual, and you're like, this is some
"Mhm."
skippable bullshit for moms and babies, and I don't need to watch it.
Exactly, exactly. And then ANN had an article where they interviewed one of the animators who is hard of hearing, and she was in charge of animating all of the sign language. And that got me really curious. So I watched the first episode, and the opening song plays, and it kind of reinforced the whole, oh, this is just a kids' show. We're going on this wonderful adventure. It's very, I guess, childish for lack of a better word. And after watching the first episode, I thought, okay, this is all right. I'll give it one more. And that's when the hammer dropped and hit me right in the feels because it had to do with child abuse and trauma and getting over that and learning how to trust and love again. And I'm just, where the heck did this come from? So this is not a kid's show. It can be violent at times. There's a lot of blood at times. The themes are mature. Excuse me, the themes can be mature, but it's really hard to square against the aesthetic of it all because it still looks very childish in the character designs and the world that they inhabit. And at least I was having a hard time at first knowing when to take a character design literally or not. Because in children's shows, there will be characters that are really tall next to characters that are really short, and they're exaggerated. They're not really that way in the world of the show. And here we have a king who's got to be, what, 15 feet tall? And his little son Boji is maybe 3 or 4 feet tall. And so it took me a while to figure out, okay, are these people really that tall? And the answer is yes, they are. Um, so it's an oddball of a show. I like it, but I don't know if I can recommend it because it's just so strange. What do you think about it, Sean?
I absolutely recommend this show. This is the only show this season that I can recommend without any reservation.
Hmm.
It's entertaining, it's interesting, it's well made. It has it's got good characters. It looks like some bullshit, but it's kind of like a fairy tale and kind of like Game of Thrones. I know it's it's kind of cliche to compare it to Game of Thrones, but it is like the king dies and there's a war of succession between, or a sort of conflict anyway, a conflict of succession between two princes. And all the characters that surround the princes, who are like varying degrees of morally compromised, have to align with one prince or the other, and a lot of them have ulterior motives where they're actually aligned with some totally other character that you don't know about yet, or something like that. And so the first few episodes play out with like a lot of backstabbing and stuff, and kind of like Game of Thrones, it introduces a character you're like, oh, I hate this character, they're despicable. And then they give you the backstory, and then you understand them, and they're suddenly interesting. You want to see more of them. And so the first several episodes of the show is kind of like backstory theater, which sounds tedious, but it's all good stuff. It's all nice and compact, and has some emotional impact. And it is funny that it's it has a story like that, but also it's very cutesy visually, and even the character names are like very silly. The boy's name is like Boji, which kind of sounds like, I don't know, Bochan or something like that. And there's a stepmom who has a healing power, and her name is Healing, literally. I think the king who dies has some ridiculous name. Boss. That's right. His name is Boss. Bossu.
So,
I
did you guys watch it in being that you've completed it, I presume you watched it in Japanese with
I
English subtitles, correct?
Yes.
yeah, necessarily, right? Is there like a simuldub or something? Are they doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm actually watching it in English.
Hmm.
So
Heresy.
I have a little bit of a different take on the anime, being that it's in English.
Hmm.
But I'll let you finish what you were saying first before I say what I say.
Okay. There's very little that I don't like about this show, but there are a handful of things where I feel like the protagonist, or whatever, the hero, Boji, he's a little too spotless. Like I want some level of like moral compromise, or some blemish on him to like make him more of a three-dimensional character. Because right now he's just this like unwavering, totally sympathetic. Everybody sees him as the I, anyway. And I also don't think I'm trying to figure out a way to describe this without like spoiling it, but it feels like all the characters are too redeemable. Like I want this show to have like a despicable villain where you're like I can't wait for this guy to get his comeuppance, but instead everyone gets the backstory, and then you're like, I'm sympathetic toward this character, and they're going to be redeemed by the end. They're all going to get back together, and sing a song, Kumbaya, and that's going to be. I want this show to have a little bit more of an edge to it, because I feel like the potential is there, but otherwise, I think this is probably the best anime of the season. That's all I got to say right now.
So for what's been like, I guess what I can access at the moment is only 6 episodes have been released in English. I've been watching it on Funimation, and for me, yeah, I agree. It is actually a really good anime, and it is misleading when you first look at the art style and even read the synopsis. You straight away, yeah, think some sort of kids show or something like. And I'm very picky when it comes to anything that is like got that English dub. So for me to actually watch this in English, it's actually quite a surprise. And I think the English voice actors, they seem pretty good. Like I have so many people tell me that when they listen to something like or watch anime in English, like the English voice actors either sound too monotoned or flat for them to, get emotion. But watching this in English was actually quite enjoyable, and it's interesting hearing your guys' points about being that you've finished it. Um,
I
but I've
I think I think it's 2 seasons, right? Like it's not over, is it?
I don't think it is. Um,
Okay, so I might be behind one episode, but I
yeah,
didn't get
I'm
the
in
impression that the show is going to
well.
wrap up like in the next one.
mm,
It does say it's
yeah,
slotted for 23 episodes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
it's definitely going to be like interesting the way because obviously you guys know how it's ended so far with the episodes, but being only 6 episodes in. So like it feels like some sort of like what would be a good example? Like it feels like it's gonna have that cliche thing like a Disney princess, sort of like magic will save you from your disaster. But it's like it's definitely gonna be interesting on how everything will be resolved with all of his issues and like but I do agree with that who's the actual villain, because I thought like at first I thought like I guess this is going into spoils and all that, but I thought the stepmom current queen, I guess it was, I thought she was going to be the villain because there's a lot of stories where it's sort of that is the uptake on it. Like a new mother comes, stepmother or whatever. She's the one that wants to take over control. Same with like the half brother or whatnot. But it's just it felt like everything was coming after him. So it's good if we can just get a mastermind, like someone that just sits at the top of like, nah, Boji, we got to just get rid of him. It just feels like everyone's just going at him.
Yeah,
That's practically all
either
I got.
it either needs like a villain or it needs some sort of intractable conflict where like one or the other character must die, in some tragic fashion in order for the conflict to be resolved. Because right now it feels like too many of the conflicts aren't intractable. Like they are solvable, and everyone just needs to get together and like talk it out or something. I want there to be some sort of like great tragedy or something that happens. I don't know. We'll see
Like,
what it does in the second season.
yeah, there's this whole part where he just arrives at this doorstep of hopefully a person that would solve all of his problems for him to go, oh yeah, that's not me, go away. Like I was hoping he would like toy with him more, but no.
Yeah, it's kind of like Homer's Odyssey structurally, in the sense that like the hero is exiled from the kingdom, and the story shares time between the the hero's journey and the trouble back home in the palace.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to skip the idol ice hockey thingy. I believe that's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pride of Orange.
I do want to say I find this funny that no one here has seen Platinum End.
What is Platinum
I
End?
tried that. It's a it was a well, it's an anime now, but it was written by the creator of Death Note. And I read the first, like I bought 4 manga volumes and only read 2 and dropped it. So I find it funny that no one's read or watched it properly.
All right. You have a nice one, Jessica.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I
See ya.
Bye.
All right. So then after Ice Hockey Idols, we got what is this? Faraway Paladin, as they say it in Crunchyroll. Saihate no Paladin.
Mhm.
Yay! I actually just finished watching the current episode, which I believe is episode 11. Is there going to be more to this? Or is
I
it.
don't know if there's gonna be a 12th episode because I did get a notification saying a new episode came out, but I don't think it was actually like episode 12 or anything. So I'm not sure if this season is concluded or not.
It's not. Episode 12 is supposed to be self-titled episode,
Ah, okay.
according to Q cut at the end of episode 11, anyways.
I think it might be a special episode. It's not part of the regular run, but it is part of this first season. I believe they were announced that there was going to be a second season.
I'm looking at here, and it says it's 12 episodes, so I guess hopefully we get one more.
I think it
Well,
was
so
announced on.
Looks like it will be out tomorrow.
I think I
Sure.
did see an announcement on like my anime list for a second season, if I'm not mistaken.
According to Wikipedia, it's, episode 12 is out tomorrow.
All right. So what do you guys think of it so far, though?
I
What do y'all think of the Faraway Paladin so far? Has it been fun or?
I think it's it's is an isekai, uh, and the interesting thing is, in the world, right, there is reincarnation. In fact, the main character Will ends up serving Gracefield, who is the goddess of reincarnation. So in this world, you know, him saying that, oh, I have memories from a previous life is not looked on with absolute strangeness and terror. Um, but and but his life as whatever in Japan or whatever previous world, right? It doesn't. It's not a strong factor. It's just that he remembers a lot of regretful things, not being able to succeed, not being able to give back to his parents, um, and leading a very monotonous, dull life. But he is reincarnated as a baby, and from the first part is him growing up with in a city where his three guardians are undead beings. Um, so it goes through his growth. It goes through his struggles. I think yeah, for an isekai, I think it is on the higher level. He's certainly being trained by very they were his guardians were heroes before they became undead, and so they have the skill and the knowledge to teach him and to teach him to be much better than say average villager would be. So um, uh, even though he faces challenges, um, he is well equipped and trained for that. So it's not overpowered in the sense that he has all these cheat skills or superpowers. Um, but he realizes later on in the second arc that he is actually much better than most people, and for him to not admit that has been his downfall. Right? He just wants to be another normal party member, but he can't. He has made some mistakes. So that was episode 11. Um, yeah, overall, it's not a bad isekai. There's some production value problems that I've seen. There's a fair number of still shots, even around episode 10 and 11. Animation is not as good as it first was, but the story is, I think, still good. Yeah. So if you like isekai, if you like fantasy, I think it's recommendation from me to go check it out, and you'll know within the first three episodes if you like it or not.
The only thing I have to say about this is I kind of went back to reread the manga, and I was actually kind of disappointed with the newest episode compared to the manga. Things happened slightly differently, and in the manga, I was impacted a whole lot more than what they showed here in this newest episode, or the recent episode 11. And and because I was kind of expecting this different take because of the manga, I was kind of like really disappointed with this newest episode. But um, I'll probably. But overall, I think everything's been really good. I mean, there's nothing I would really say has been bad about this. Once again, because I have read most of the manga beforehand, I wasn't really watching this week by week. I would kind of do groups of episodes. Like I just before this hangout, I watched the last three of them, and it's really enjoyable, but I don't know. Just it kind of also seems like it falls short on being like impressive that it'll stay in people's minds. Like, I mean, it looks good. It's really good for what it is right now, but I just don't feel it has anything to hold people for a long time. But because there's those shows out there that you're like, oh, I gotta rewatch this one episode. I really love this one scene. While the show's been great, there's just nothing that's been there that's been like, man, I really love that one moment, or this was really cool. So, it seems like it'll be a good show to tie time if you want to watch something good. And if you have some time, this is definitely a really good choice. But to say it's like really, really impressive, I can't say that.
Yeah, I can definitely I can see your views with that. It was definitely interesting hearing your take on Faraway Paladin, being that you've read it. For me, I thought it was all right. I felt like he was skipping a few steps like after he had left, going down the story. I felt like some things, like some steps, were skipped to where he is now. Like, I did feel certain parts were a little boring, but after watching the 11th episode of him realizing that there's such a big consequence on the goal that he's trying to achieve, and that um, the gap or distance he has in abilities compared to others is, like, he's just realizing how different he is compared to a lot of other people. So for me, the 11th episode picked it up. So I'm hoping the 12th episode ends it on a good note. Being that I saw that there's going to be a second season, not sure how that's going to go. But I do agree it is definitely an anime I would not rewatch. It was not memorable in any way. That's my take on it.
All right, so real quick, we still have quite a few titles, and I'm surprised we've actually watched so much as a group this season. So, do you guys want to hold off on the rest of the titles for next week, and we'll do the rest for next week, or do you want to just pick a few leftovers that we have here that we want to discuss for the rest of the 20-15 minutes we have?
I think next week is fine.
I'm seeing close to like 10 titles that we've all watched in some form or another.
Maybe that'll give me some time to finish some of these other titles, but I'll discuss those with you guys then. So I guess we'll end it here at 1 hour 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Oh wait, it's actually 58 minutes. Wow, so we are at 2 hours. So we'll save the rest for next week, same time, I believe, right? You guys all good for that?
Yeah.
That should be okay.
I will not
Too
be
bad.
able to.
I was looking forward to you reading the entire name of that really long name anime. Shino Nakamachanai, etc., etc.
So I know it may be difficult for you, Neo, with the time difference and everything. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. It's been really fun to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for showing up.
Hopefully your time schedule changes in the future, and you can join us.
Just don't have a job.
No. Maybe when you get that PTO in there, you can take one Monday off a week or something. So we do these at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season. So I'll give you a time schedule of when we probably think we're going to do it again, and if you feel like you really want to join us, we always welcome you. Is there any parting words you guys want to say? You know, what was there also that Sword Art Online Progressive? How many did you guys watch that?
I did.
I watched that.
Nope.
Really? It was actually really good.
It was a good take seeing a different side other than Kirito, honestly.
Kirito is so
That's good.
cringe, but they also changed a lot of the character designs, I think, for as far as the enemies. Because I remember in episode 1, the main boss was super big and fat and was this big monster. But in this movie, he was like buff and everything, just like decked out. I'm like, oh man, this is a boss. So they did do some slight changes there, but yeah. So we'll discuss everything. I believe also if you guys are watching this, you don't know, the movie Belle is coming out in IMAX on January 12th in select theaters, and then on other theaters by the 14th, right?
Yeah.
And that's by Mamoru Hosoda. You know, what is it? Girl Who Left Her Time, Summer Wars, Ame and Yuki, The Wolf Children, The Beast and Me, or what's actually the name of that one? I can't remember.
Beast and the Boy?
Yeah, Beast
Boy
and the
and the Beast.
Boy and the Beast.
Boy and the Beast.
It's one of them.
The Boy and the Beast, yeah.
Did he make anything else after that, or is this his newest one?
This is the newest one.
Yeah, so we got that coming out, so that would be fun to discuss at the... I don't think it'll be next session, but for the start of the season.
Yeah.
And you can join us on our Discord for... We put a lot of announcements. Albert shares quite a few really good information from some Twitters or other sites that he follows and gives us some information. Sean gives us some pretty good information. Vinny gives us some pretty good pictures. And I hope to see everyone else next week. I guess we'll have to message Jessica to let her know. And other than that, have a wonderful New Year's, and everyone keep up your anime watching. I'm actually happy to see Sean seems to be getting back into anime. It seemed like for a while he's gonna be like, it's dead for me.
It's true. I watched 3 things. It's a miracle.
I was very surprised.
So we'll see you all next week.